Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted more success, happiness, and fulfillment in your life, then do we have the Master Your Time, Master Your Life show for you. Today I'll be talking with one of my first guiding lights and mentors in my life, though he has no idea that's the case, Brian Tracy, motivational speaker and the best-selling author of over 70 books, including a new favorite of mine, Master Your Time, Master Your Life. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about a breakthrough system to get more results faster in every area of your life. That plus we'll talk about Hawaii and Palm Springs, Goodwill and Vincent de Paul's, the Phoenix Seminar and the Inner Game of Success, the power of detentions, the importance of clarity, why you might want to take a 2-night Shabbat, what in the world is psychoneuromotor activity, the superconscious mind, and why if you don't straighten up, you'll end up like Tracy. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Brian. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, let's go.
Woohoo! So before we dive right into things, I've got to ask, just how many presidents and prime ministers have you had dinner with?
Probably 3 or 4 over the years.
Fantastic. And if we go back in time, if we go way on back, can you tell us, were you a model student growing up?
Absolutely not. I was kicked out of school several times, and I left school without high school without graduating and worked washing dishes. So,
and what was your parents' mantra around money while you were growing up?
We can't afford it. We can't afford anything.
So then, as you were a child, before you got kicked out of schools, and I guess you were having a record number of detentions at this point.
Absolutely.
It sounds like around 16, you had a revelation that if you wanted to change things, you needed to do what?
Well, above the age of 17 or 18, I realized if I wanted to change things, I had to change myself. And then at the age of 20, I had probably my greatest turning point when I realized that I was completely responsible for my own life. And I found that every single successful person starts to be successful after that point. They realize, I'm responsible. This is my life. Nobody's coming to the rescue. And until that, they blame others and they make excuses and they hold back and they complain and they criticize. But after you decide to accept responsibility, your whole life changes.
So you were a construction laborer, if I understand at the time. And then
Yes.
How did you decide to go from there and say, I'm getting into sales?
Well, what happened was I worked in laboring jobs for several years, and then I could no longer find a laboring job, and I had to eat. And eating is a real motivation.
Yep.
The only thing I could get was a straight commission sales job knocking on doors. So I took it and ran with it. And that was the turning point. I never went back to laboring.
And there was somebody, I guess, who introduced you to the Pareto concept or the Pareto principle at that time. And I think you ran with that as well.
Well, a friend of mine in selling said, did you know that the top 20% of salespeople earn 80% of the money? And I said, I'd never heard that before. He said, oh, yeah, it's a pretty common principle in sales. And I said, well, if that's the case, then I want to be in the top 20%. And as you said, I'm going to write a new book next year. It's going to be called Turning Points. Mm-hmm. But as I look back in my life, I find that there were many large and small turning points. And one of them was that, because I found then that if you commit to getting into the top 20% and you just keep working at it, there's nothing that can stop you from achieving it. But if you don't commit to getting into the top 20%, you automatically default to average, and you'll never accomplish anything in life. And so I began studying this. I read 6,000 books. You can see all these books behind me. This is a fraction of the books in my home. And I've read most of them. But what we find is that every successful person is successful because they make a decision to be very excellent at what they do. And they work at it sometimes for years before they achieve that. You've heard of the 10,000-hour principle that was identified by Pears Anders and Anders Ericsson. Mm-hmm. Actually, that was discussed 25 years ago. The Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book on it, and everybody runs around going, woo! It's been out for 25, 30 years. This research says that basically it takes about 5 to 7 years of hard work and about 5 to 7,000 hours to become excellent in your field. You know, it's interesting because I would say this to my sales audiences, and I would say, now, most of you are thinking, geez, I'm 30 years old. I'd have to be 37 to be at the top of my field. So I would ask this question. I say, well, much older are you going to be in 7 years anyway? And the answer is the time is going to pass. Is 7 years from now, you'll be 7 years older. The only question is, will you be average, mediocre, worried about money every single morning when you get up and all day long? Or are you going to be at the top of your field, living in a big house in the hills with beautiful cars and your kids in private schools? And the decision is 100% up to you, because anybody can get into the top 20% if they decide to. Well, anyway, so that was the turning point for me. I decided to get into the top 20%. And then I looked up and I found there were no barriers. It was an open field. There's nobody stopping you. So I say to my audiences, I say, there's only one person who can stop you from being in the top 20%. Now, who would that be? And the whole audience gets it instantly. They point to themselves. It would be me. That's right. So don't let yourself hold yourself back. Anyway, so that was a turning point for me.
We may use that as a theme today because I think that's so important. It's a topic I've been talking about a lot on the show lately, which is that things always happen with a decision. You can want something all you want, but until you actually make that decision with action, stepping forward, nothing changes.
Yes, and that's a very important point, is that your life just goes on by momentum or inertia. Sir Isaac Newton's law of inertia is a body in motion just tends to remain in motion in the same direction unless acted upon by an outside force. Human beings continue to do the same thing indefinitely unless acted upon by a decision. Is they make a decision that I call it like a bump car in the circus. Mm-hmm. Like a bump car, they make a decision to go in a different direction. And until that happens, nothing happens. So you're right on the mark there.
So going along those lines, with that bump car, what is the importance then of having clarity?
Well, I would say that clarity is probably 95% of success. I teach it almost like a fundamental religion. And you start off by being clear, who are you? I mean, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then what do you want to accomplish with your life? And so we start off with real simple questions, like if you had no limitations, if you had all the money and time that you needed, if you had all the opportunities and contacts, is what would you ideally want to accomplish in your life? And so then we take people through a goal-setting exercise, which is exactly the first chapter in the book, Master Your Time, Master Your Life. Because until you're absolutely clear about where you want to end up, then, as they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Mm-hmm. Now, there was a wonderful book written back in the 90s called on strategic planning. It was the top book for business. It was called Competing for the Future. And what they said is that to be successful, you have to identify the skills that you're going to have to be at the top sometime in the future. Yep. Because you cannot achieve anything more than you're achieving today at your current level of skills and knowledge. So you have to decide it. And then then you have to decide your goals. And what they said was this, is if you're absolutely clear about your future vision, then your current decision making is very easy. It's very easy to make decisions in the moment if you're crystal clear about where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. And how do you do that? You just make sure that everything that you're doing today is consistent with where you want to be in the future. And I teach this to people, and they just sit there shaking their heads. As they said, that is so simple. One of the real exercises I do, I say, how many people here would like to double their income? And everybody raises their hand. I say, well, I know several different ways to double your income that are absolutely guaranteed, but let me just give you one to start off with before the seminar. I say, imagine that you have 2 types of activities that you engage in each day. And we'll call these A activities and B activities in 2 different categories. A activities are those activities that move you toward the goals that are most important to you. Those are the most important things that you do every minute of every day. B activities are activities that not only do not move you towards your goals, in many cases they move you away. They are basically distractions. They're wastes of time. They're the chatting with your friends and checking your email and all these things that are totally valueless activities. So here you have these 2 categories. If you want to double your income, do only A activities and don't do B activities, and do them all day long. And if you'll do that and develop the habit of doing that, you'll double your productivity, your performance, your output, your income, and your rate of promotion. And it's absolutely guaranteed. And I know it because I've taught it all over the world. And when I go back, people come up to me and say, you told me that idea and you were here a year ago. I'm earning 3 times more today than I ever thought I would earn in my life. I can't believe it. I just don't do anything that's not moving me toward a financial goal. And whatever you do repeatedly eventually becomes a habit. So you get up in the morning, you plan your day, and you start on your most important task, and you stay at it till it's done. And then you do the next important task. You stay at that till it's done. If all you did was 3 important tasks each day, you'd be one of the highest performing and highest paid people in your field, whatever your field is.
I have things I put on my note on my book of intentions daily, and in my my daily to-dos. It's called an SMP, a single-minded purpose.
Wonderful.
And I want a single-minded purpose for the day, but if I have to, no more than 3 single-minded purposes. Your top,
Wonderful.
your second, and if you need to go for the third. So let's go from there. What is the importance of putting our goals in writing, and how clear do we want to be?
Well, you asked earlier about a psychoneuromotor activity,
Yes.
which is a highfalutin word, but it means that there's three learning modalities that a person has. There's visual, there's auditory, and there's kinesthetic. And when you write down a goal, you activate your visual because you see it. You activate your auditory because you actually sub-vocalize it when you write it down, and it's kinesthetic, so you're doing it physically. As a result of all 3 of these, this goal drops straight into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind accepts it as a command and then begins working on it 24 hours a day. And I've worked with people that have been absolutely astonished. They've heard about writing down goals for years, and they've never done it. I said, just write it down, and within 7 days, I promise you, your life will change. And some people come up to me before the end of the seminar. You won't believe it. I had one recently. She had this one goal. That's all she wanted. She wanted her son transferred from a distant university to a nearby university so he could be closer to home. And she had contacted the registrar. She had called people. She had done everything. And there was all too many technicalities, and he was already enrolled and everything else. And so she wrote it down in the seminar as a goal. And while she was in the seminar, less than 30 minutes later, the registrar of the distant university phoned her in the seminar and said, "We've managed to put the transfer through, and your son will be transferred next week." And she said, "I can't believe it." She said, in less than 30 minutes, this registrar from a distant university in a distant city phones her in the seminar and fulfills her goal exactly the way she wrote it down. I said, yes, and see, it works. It works all the time. People are shocked until they do it. And even when you and I do it, and we write it down and we make a plan, and then suddenly we realize the goal, we say, damn, this is amazing stuff. This really works. We even are shocked ourselves. And how many times it works for us.
So from there, just it may sound silly. Well, I think it's really important. I'd love your take on it. I have right here a physical notepad that I use because while I type to write my books and stuff, what I want to put, I call it casting a large stone into the pond of the universe. I want it in physical writing.
Here's my physical book.
Woohoo! Nice blue notebook. I love it.
This something like this will make you rich. People don't understand it. All you need, I read this wonderful one-liner 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. It said, "Get yourself a 10-cent pen, a 10-cent pencil, and a $1 notebook, and begin writing down some $1 million goals." And I thought that's really simple. All you need is a little pad of paper and a pen, and just write down your goals. And what happens is, it's like planting seeds, like a farmer. The nature and sunshine, water, rain, the soil, the nutrients will grow the seed. You don't grow the seed, you plant the seed. And planting the seed is when you write it down physically, as we just talked about. And it's planted, and then you get on with the rest of your life, because now it starts to work. It starts to grow, and some plants or seeds, like grass, can grow overnight. You can plant grass, the next morning you see green. Chinese bamboo takes 5 years. So some really big goals take much longer to accomplish, but they are continuing to grow, and all the powers of nature are working on the goals. The law of attraction is activated. Mm-hmm. You start to attract ideas and insights and people, resources and money. It's the most astonishing thing. But only 3% of adults will write down their goals. You and I can talk to them like this. What I used to do in my coaching programs with my business owners is at the beginning of the first day, they would work with me one day every 90 days for 8 hours. I would hand out a book like this. I say, I want to introduce you now to your new best friend. And then I would teach them how to, first of all, determine their goals. And then second of all, simply to rewrite their goals every morning in the present tense without referring back to the previous page. So you have to write them from memory. You can't just copy like a child's copybook. You write down your goals from memory. And what happens is your goal definition changes and your order of priority changes. And new goals pop up and other goals drop off. I say to do this for 31 days. People come back to me and said that exercise gave me more success than 3 years of coaching at $25,000 a year. I made more money in the last 90 days with that simple exercise than anything I've ever done. I said, of course, it's like a miracle. Write down your 10 goals every day. I learned that 34 years ago and started doing it and never stopped.
Do you ask them to, or maybe another exercise of yours, to link an emotion, a feeling, a state with that, with each one of their goals?
You can do that, but it's not necessary, because if it's a goal, there's an automatic state of anticipation or hope or expectation. And I know all of the psycho-neuro-linguistic exercises, and they're all very good to link a goal, link a visual picture, and so on. But the very minimum, just write it down, and all the other things will take place. If you write down a goal to earn a lot of money, the first thing you think of is how you will spend the money, how you'll improve your quality of your life, what you'll improve your lifestyle, where you live, the car you drive, and so on. And then those pictures in your mind activate emotions. They activate excitement, anticipation. They stimulate your creativity. They attract people and circumstances into your life. But the main thing is just get it written down on paper.
Beautiful. So from there, we'll jump forward in your book just a little bit, and maybe you can tell us the importance of the 3 words: clarity, focus, and concentration.
Yeah. Well, clarity is my favorite word, and it has been ever since I began. And if you write something down, by the way, that automatically makes it clear. And this is what every single study has found. So now sometimes you weren't even clear about what you wanted. So when I work with my coaching clients or my corporate clients, when I do strategic planning for billion-dollar companies, first thing we do is we become crystal clear about where we want to end up a week, a month, a year, 5 years from now. And this requires a lot of debate. And what is quite funny, I sit down, like I did a strategic planning program 2 days in September in Washington, D.C., and there's a lot of interesting parts to that since the election. But anyway, I had about 19, 20 people. And we find that almost everybody has a different idea of our strategic goals, purposes, focuses, uses of money, and so on. So by the time we finish, everybody's on the same page. Everybody has the same idea where we want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and what are our priorities, and who are our key people and key resources, and what are the costs. It's quite astonishing, because it's almost like those racing cars where they have nitrous oxide cylinders, and they put on the nitrous oxide cylinders like in those movies they had, and the car just explodes like a rocket. Well, that's what happens in people's lives and in corporations. They explode like a rocket. They suddenly start to move ahead at an incredible speed. And sometimes they tell me, geez, it's almost scary, the speed at which my life is changing since I began to write down the goals. And I said, well, do you want to stop? And he said, no, I love it. I love this speed. Yeah.
So going from there, let's talk about then getting things down that you need to get done. And maybe you can share with us briefly the ABCDE method.
All right. Well, let me answer your previous question, which I failed to do. Clarity is to be clear about the goals. Focus is to focus on one goal at a time, like you talk about the 3 things. Focus on your most important goal. If you just focus on that, very often one goal is worth 10 times as much as any other activity. And both Warren Buffett and Bill Gates said that focus is the most important quality you can develop to be successful in today's world. And then the third part is concentration. And I learned this decades ago, this wonderful line is that concentrating single-mindedly on a particular task or achievement does not guarantee you will be successful, but not concentrating absolutely guarantees you will fail. And so those 3, and the wonderful thing about habits is you become clear about what you want to accomplish, you focus single-mindedly on one thing at a time, and you concentrate on that task until it's complete. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it is astonishing, as you know, because you practice this, and I practice it, how it changes your life. I just got my 83rd book yesterday in the mail, and it came from a 2-day interview conversation, and it's called The Science of Money. Is how to earn or how to increase your income and become wealthy. And it was with a professional interviewer with a series of professional questions. And what they did is they asked me questions for 2 days in a studio. And then they took them, transcribed them, turned them over to a professional writer in New York. And the professional writer wrote it into a book, so it's like a conversation. It's called Conversations with Experts. And I had forgotten it, and it just arrived in the mail yesterday. I got 10 copies. And what it does is it deals with what is money? Where does money come from? How is money increased? How do businesses succeed? What are the reasons for success and failure financially? What can you do to become wealthy? I mean, and so I've studied this subject for literally thousands of hours. And so basically, it was like a stream of consciousness. This is exactly what you do in each of these areas. So you have the interviewer asking the question, which is written down, and then me free flowing. Anyway, the point is this: these are the keys to success: is to be crystal clear about what you want, focus single-mindedly, and concentrate until you achieve your most important task.
Fantastic. Thank you. From there, real briefly, because we don't need to dive into the super nitty-gritty of this. Everybody, you're going to want to get the book. But can you tell us briefly about the ABCDE method?
Yeah.
I think this is powerful for getting a handle on our to-dos.
Yes. Well, many people have told me, come up to me with their eyes and faces shining in my seminars. You know, I speak to about 250,000 people a year in about 20 to 25 countries a year. I've spoken in 82 countries. I just got back from Vietnam a couple of days ago, and before that I was on a 53-day trip throughout Europe, Russia, Kazakhstan, and the Middle East. So I go to a lot of places. When I come back, he comes up to me and he says, that ABCD method, that doubled my income. He said, I'm on my way to becoming a millionaire. He said, I use it every day. And what it is this? We say, make a list of everything you have to do before you start. Mm-hmm. The very act of making a list, on a piece of paper like this will make you rich. Yeah. So what I do is you make a list, and then before you start, you go over the list and you divide it into 5 categories, A, B, C, D, E. Now, an A is what is called a must task. And one of the most important words in time management or in life management or in success is the word consequences. Consequences. So something is important if it has big potential consequences for your life. Something is unimportant if it has low or no consequences. What is the reason for success and failure? Successful people focus on those activities that have the largest potential consequences. What do unsuccessful people do? They waste their time on things that have low or no consequences, but they're fun and they're easy and they're enjoyable. And whatever you do consistently becomes a habit. Mm-hmm. So low performing people are always doing things of low value. So you say an A task is a task that you must do. If you don't do this, there's going to be serious potential consequences for your boss, for your banker, for your bills, this is important. So that's an A task, and you write an A next to it. And then your B tasks are are things that you should do. They have mild consequences. Get back to certain emails and call your friend and so on. You should do these, but they have mild consequences and nowhere near as important as A task. Mm-hmm. C task is a task that has no consequences. Whether you do it or not do it, it makes no difference at all. And so you only do C tasks after you've done your A and B tasks. You only do B tasks after you've done your A tasks. Now the last two, A, B, C, D, E, D is delegate. And the rule is delegate everything you possibly can rather than doing it yourself. You only have a certain amount of time, and you cannot spend the time doing low-value, no-value tasks. One of the things I teach people, again, double your income, it's very simple. I ask a question. I say, in terms of your time, how much do you earn? And they say, well, how much do you, no, but what I mean is how much do you earn per hour? I learned this from a successful multimillionaire who, when I met him, had nothing and was deeply in debt. And when I met him again, good friend of mine, he was a multimillionaire. And he asked me, how much do you earn? And I said, well, I earn, I'm trying to think on a monthly, annual basis. He said, no, how much do you earn per hour? And that started me thinking about that. And then the more I look at successful people and study their biographies, I find that successful people allocate their time in tighter and tighter amounts. Like you and I, we have 40 minutes and so on. So they tighter and tighter amounts. And really successful people allocate their time in 10-minute amounts. I called a friend of mine, actually spoke to him again yesterday. He's very wealthy. He's worth about $100 million, starting from knocking on doors on the street. He owned hotels, office building, very smart guy. Anyway, when I called him up a couple of years ago for an appointment, he said, I can speak to you between 10:40 and 10:50 on Thursday, this particular day. I said, geez, that's pretty precise. He said, yes. He said, I have an appointment at 11 o'clock, and I will be getting into my car at 10, my limousine, which is being driven by my valet, and I will have one phone call to make, and I'll have a 10-minute window on this trip. And then I have to get out of the car to be on time at my appointment down in downtown Manhattan. And I'll tell you, I called him on the second, and we spoke. He said, let's get straight to the point because we now only have 9 minutes left. And boy, we did. We go through a lot of stuff in 9 minutes. And at 10 minutes, he said, time's up. Talk to you again soon. And I never forgot that. And this guy is rich, starting with nothing because he allocates his time so tightly. So then I would say to him, so how much do you earn? And they would say, okay, let's say you earn $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year divided by 2,000, which is the number of hours that an entrepreneur, a self-employed person earns, is $50 an hour. So therefore, you are a $50 an hour person. If you want to double your income, you have to become a $100 an hour person. So what are the activities that pay you $50 an hour or more? And then as we'll talk about it, then there's only three. There's only three activities that pay you whatever your job is, that pay you $50 an hour or more. So then you learn the great word of time management, which is the word no. And you do not do anything that does not pay you your desired hourly rate. If you want to earn $100 an hour, there's still only three things. They're probably the three main things you're doing now, but you have to do them better and you have to do more of them. And so D is delegate everything that does not pay you your desired hourly rate. Do not make your own coffee and do not make your own photocopies and do not waste your time reading sports pages because nobody from the outside is going to come and pay you $50 an hour. So you always ask, would I pay somebody else $50 or $100 an hour to do what I'm doing right now? And if the answer is no, stop doing it. And finally, number 5, A, B, C, D, E, is eliminate. Is most of us are doing things that we started to do at a certain time in life, and they may have been important or appropriate, but now they're of no value at all, and that because of the force of habit, we just keep doing them all the time. And it's quite astonishing. Stop doing it. Just stop doing things that no longer have any value. And that's Warren Buffett was asked. Warren Buffett started with $2,000. He's now worth $350 billion. Last year, he made $24.9 billion in profit. Started with 2,000. And they asked him, what is your secret to success? He said, my secret to success is simple. He said, I say no to everything, except for the 2 or 3 things that pay me the kind of money I want to earn. The 2 or 3 things that I do that are most important to my business. I just say no to everything. No, 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 no. And I have found, and I've worked on time management. I mean, this is my recent book. I'm the best-selling time management author in the world. This is just my most recent book, in 42 languages, by the way. And one of the things I learned is just say no. What if it's not a high-value use of your time? Don't even start it. Just say no. Can you help me move on the weekend? No. Can you do this for me? Pick this up for me? Do that? No, 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 no. I'm sorry. It's not a good use of my time. Thank you very much for thinking of me. But why don't you find somebody who's going nowhere with their life and has lots of spare time and get them to do it? But for me, I simply can't afford it. So I remember this one great story. I love it. Guy comes to a top salesman in the company. He says, do you want to go for a cup of coffee? You want to go to Starbucks for a cup of coffee? And the guy says, no. He said, here. But he puts it in his pocket. He gave him a $5 bill. He said, here, you go and have a cup of Starbucks on me. He said, well, why would you do that? He said, it's cheaper for me to give you $5 and send you off to have your own cup of coffee than it is for me to get up and go with you. And I never forgot that. I mean, that is so smart. And this guy's one of the highest paid people in his business.
Excellent. And we'll double back in a minute here. We'll get there about the importance of free time. So we're not saying not to be social with people, but we're saying to be very choosy and picky with our time. Before we get there, maybe you can tell us what is our most valuable financial asset?
Yes. Well, that's my favorite theme. And it is your earning ability. It's your ability to earn money. And your earning ability is defined as your ability to get results that people will pay you for. And 80% or more of people, the bottom 80%, have never thought of this. And I think one of the biggest lapses, the failures in our school system, and by the way, I'm starting to read articles on it, which is good, is that every single student should learn that the reason that they are in school is to develop talents and skills that will enable them to serve other people when they leave here and earn a good living and have a good life and pay for their bills and have a nice home and car and clothes and everything else. That's why you're here. You're not here to have an endless circle of education and so on. You're here to learn and develop skills so that you can be of value to other people so that you can have a good life. Nobody's ever taught that. And so your earning ability is made up of your ability to get results. And then we go right around, and there's three things that you do in any job that account for 90% of your results. So your job is to figure out what those three things are. And then I'll go through an exercise. And then I say, now here's the key. First of all, do fewer things. Don't try to do everything. Do fewer things. And the fewer things you do, the more you can focus on your big three. The next thing is do them all day long. And then the third thing is get better at each one. So here's a very simple system. Identify your big three that account for 90% of your value, is stop everything else, just say no, then work single-mindedly on those three all day, and then concentrate on getting better. Continually upgrade your skills so you become really good at those three. That'll do more to increase your earning ability faster and with greater consistency than anything else you can do.
Thank you. And from there, let's talk about skills for a minute. And one of the themes that struck in my head from the first thing that I read about you, and it's something that I do voraciously, might even be an understatement. I tend to eat books. Can you tell us about the power of the book?
Well, the simple idea is this: is one idea can change your life. One idea that you stumble across can change your life. I was reading a book. I asked a friend of mine, I always ask them, have you read any good books lately? And this is about 3 or 4 years ago. And she's very smart. And she said, well, the best book I've read recently is called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which is one of the most respected books. It sold 1.5 million copies. I just read a huge article on it just last week. And I said, really? I respected her. I bought the book and I read it. And it's really heavy going. It's the guy got, Daniel Kahneman, they call him Danny, got a Nobel Prize for insights that are in that book. And so I thought about that. I said, isn't that interesting? And basically what he said is that you can think fast or slow. Standard thinking is you think fast, quick, instinctive, intuitive, like driving through busy traffic. You don't take a lot of time to think. And however, there are certain things where you need to think slowly. And when I talk about his stuff, I say it's the things that have the biggest potential consequences. And those are the careers that you pick, the people you marry, the investments that you make, and so on. So what you do is you think slowly on those things that have the biggest potential consequences. Now, Kahneman's insight, which got him a Nobel Prize, was that people use fast thinking when they should be using slow thinking. And they make important decisions too quickly, and they are too easily influenced by irrelevant information and so on. So what I did, goal-oriented thinking versus distracted thinking. And there's 50 years of research at Harvard on what is called long-term thinking versus short-term thinking, which is goal-oriented thinking. So I started to think about that, and I said, geez, there's a lot of different ways of thinking. So I wrote this book. It took me about a year to write this, and it's called Get Smart. And Get Smart says how to think and act like the most successful and highest paid people in every field. And what it does is it shows 10 different ways of thinking. And winner thinking, loser thinking. And how do winners think? How do losers think? Short-term perspective versus long-term. Slow thinking versus fast thinking. Informed thinking versus uninformed thinking. It's astonishing how many people make decisions with long-term consequences without enough information. And you'll find that you're smartest people of all. Peter Drucker, I just bought this book last week. It's called The Peter F. Drucker Reader. Yep. I love Peter Drucker. He has one-liners that are life-changing. One of the things he said in one of his books years ago, I never forgot, he said that if you gather enough information in any area, the correct decision rises to the top like cream rises to the top of milk. It's just keep gathering information, and at a certain point, it becomes clear. If it's not clear, continue to gather information. And you think, you'll find that every big problem you had in life is you made a decision that was the wrong decision. You didn't have enough information. Darn, if I had just done more research, I wouldn't have made that decision in the first place. I've lost a fortune by not doing enough research. So we have result-oriented thinking versus activity-oriented thinking. One of the characteristics of all successful people is they're described by others as being intensely result-oriented. They get a lot of results in their field. They produce vastly more than the average person. So this is a time management chapter. It's all the different ways that people think, the A, B, C, D, E method, the 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then we have positive thinking versus negative thinking, obviously. Flexible thinking versus rigid thinking. There's a book that sold 1 million copies called Mindset. And it said there's two types of thinking, flexible thinking versus fixed thinking. I was teaching that 35 years ago. And this woman writes it down and said, "Did you know
Carol
that
Dweck.
yeah, Carol Dweck, if you think more flexibly and continue to learn, you'll be more successful than if you're have a fixed thinking and you don't learn anything." Wow, what an insight that is! Million copies. Can you imagine that? A million copies. Anyway, I have creative thinking versus mechanical thinking, then entrepreneurial thinking versus corporate thinking. If you're working for a company, think like an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Think like a person who's responsible for getting results and helping the company move forward, not a 9-to-5er who wastes their time. And then finally, my last chapter, which I love, is called Rich Thinking versus Poor Thinking. How do rich people think? And there's lots of research on this, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating how rich people think. And all you have to do, like a searchlight, is just change your thinking and start thinking this way rather than that way.
So I gotta jump in there since you brought it up. People are going to be asking, how do rich people think?
Well, rich people are always thinking about creating value for customers. That's all they think about is, what is it that people want and need that I can give them in a cost-effective way? Poor people are always thinking how much everything costs and how they can't afford it, and they go home and watch TV. So you'll find whether it's Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or anybody who's wealthy, or even a small entrepreneur. I mean, I just read a little story in our local newspaper. There's a company that's called Burgers 50/50. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen it before. It started in Orange County, 100 miles north of here. And this young guy developed this hamburger that's 50% meat and 50% beef and 50% pork or something like that. It's a hamburger. And he started called Burgers 50/50. He's got 6 burger places now, and he just sold them all for $2 million to another company. And you think about that. And this guy came up with this idea 6 or 7 years ago of making burgers that tasted differently because they had a different combination of meat. And what was his thought? His thought was he probably tried it out on himself, tried it out on his friends, and said, people really like this. What a great idea. If I could make this available, just like Ray Kroc and McDonald's, if I could make this available to more people, I could make money. And he did, and he did. and that's how rich people think. They're always looking, what is it that people want and need and are willing to pay for that I can produce? And this is the key to entrepreneurship. I can combine all the ingredients necessary to bring the product to the customer at a total cost that's lower than what the customer will pay. Mm-hmm. I spent several thousand hours studying economics, and free market economics is just based on that. You bring the product or service to people who want it and need it and will use it and pay for it at a cost lower than what they're willing to pay. That's a secret to success in business. So that's one of about 17 ways that rich people think. Another thing, rich people get up before 6 o'clock in the morning. Rich people get up early, and rich people have rituals. Rich people get up. My basic ritual is get up and exercise. Mm-hmm. Then get ready for the entire day, and then plan the day if I haven't already done that, and then organize priorities, and then start work. Get on with it. Start working. And the average rich person is actually working by 8 o'clock. And the average rich person works about 10 hours a day on average, 60 hours a week. It works about 6 days a week. There's no rich people that work 5 days a week. There's no rich people that work 8 hours a day. There's no rich people that get up at 7 o'clock and run around in circles to get off to work on time. And so you just say, well, this is really simple stuff. Yes, it is. So do it. And if you do it repeatedly, it becomes a habit. It becomes easier to do than not to do.
I like it. So from there, since you talked about working 5 or 6 days a week, maybe you can tell us what your Sabbath is and your 2 nights of rest.
Right. Well, that idea, as you know, comes from the Jewish religion. In the Jewish religion, I still remember the movie Fiddler on the Roof. If you remember that. Oh, yeah. What a big deal, Sabbath. Sabbath is coming. They're running around in circles because Sabbath means they stop the day on Friday, and they usually stop it by 5 or 6. And after that, they do no work until Sunday. That's 36 hours. I call it 2 sleeps. They have 2 sleeps. If ever you want to go on a vacation with your girlfriend, your wife, or something else, always make sure that you go away for at least 2 sleeps. 1 sleep is not enough because you're just basically getting there, unpacking, getting up, packing, and going home. So you always want to have 1 full, almost 24 hours where you don't have to do anything. And so this idea of the Sabbath is really great because if you can imagine that your brain is like a cell phone, it has a battery, and your little cell phone has a little has a little lightning streak. Well, your brain burns down over time, and just like your battery burns down. And at a certain point, now you can recharge your telephone in a couple of hours with an electrical line, but your brain requires 24 to 48 hours to recharge. And a Sabbath gives you actually 2 full sleeps, 2 full nights, which completely recharges your brain. And then what happens is when you start work again, you'll actually accomplish more in the first 3 hours of a rested week than you'd accomplish if you worked all weekend long. And you'll make fewer mistakes, you'll be more creative, you have more energy. And so more and more people are finding this, is that you see all these advertisements about rich people resting, yachts, ski lodges, first-class air cabins, and so on. You say, well, how can these people be going to all these vacation places and be rich? Well, the answer is when they work, they work. And this is the critical thing. When you work, work. And then when you take time off, and don't mix them up. The worst thing you can do, by the way, is to stay on your damn computer all weekend long and think, well, I'll just catch up with this, and I'll catch up with that, catch up with this. There's a little button here. It's called the off button. What you do is you turn the damn thing off and leave it off. Check it. If you're going to go on a weekend, check it 2 or 3 times a day. Turn it on, check it, turn it off. Don't have it continually buzzing, because almost every buzz is spam. Just leave it off. And then go through it quickly, delete, and turn it off. Almost like it's a contest. How fast can I get off and on this phone? And try and keep your computer off completely. Because if you leave your computer on, you lose 1 point of IQ for every hour that you have your computer on. That means at the end of an average day, you are 10 IQ points dumber. So the computer, the continual connection with your email actually makes you stupid. And
you're preaching to the choir on this one. I have set times that I'll check my email. I know if I check my email first thing in the morning, the day is a goner, and I no longer own a smartphone. This is my little backup emergency phone. I don't even know the phone number because nobody will call me on this thing. When when I work, I work. When I'm out, I'm out.
Yes, good. Well, that's the main thing. And so one of the things I put into my courses more and more is to avoid the attraction of distraction. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to a really smart woman talk about strategic planning, and she gave us 7 points, all of which I know. But the 7th point was this, and she said, write this down on a sticky note and put it everywhere so you see it all the time. And here's what it said. Here's the question. Before you start to do something, ask, is this moving me toward one of my most important goals, or is it merely a distraction? What a great question. Is this moving me toward one of my most important goals? Is it merely a distraction? I say, is it merely a time waster? And do that every single time before you do anything. Check. And just like we talked about A and B tasks, make sure that everything you're doing is moving you toward one of your most important goals. Now, here's the huge payoff. People say, well, doesn't it lack spontaneity and is it too rigid? No. The number one goal of all of human life, going back to Aristotle, is to be happy. Is to just feel happy. If you go to spiritual, it's to be joyous, to experience joy. So you can actually measure, and I learned this from Ayn Rand, by the way, you can actually measure how successful you are by what percentage of the time you experience joy. What percentage of the time are you happy? You can tell a quality of a relationship, whether it's between a man and a woman, a parent and a child, a boss and an employee, by how much they laugh together. You'll find, I got 27 people in my company. You go into that company, everybody laughs all the time. Every meeting is laughter, it's joke. Yeah, everybody laughs all that. Everybody's happy, and it's one of the most productive darn companies that you can imagine. Everybody wants to work there, and everybody works hard, and they're creative. And you know what they do is they turn off their phones and their emails, and they're all working. They're all in digital marketing, and they turn off their emails and their phones for 5-6 hours of the day. They discipline themselves. They come in, and one of them is, okay, everybody. Everybody's okay, and they all shut down so that they can work and concentrate single-mindedly on their work. And they're very productive, and they all get paid based on commissions, royalties, profits, and so on. One of our girls makes $140,000 a year. Others make $80,000. 23-year-olds make $80,000, $90,000 a year because they're working on generating revenues. They're working on satisfying customers all the time. They're doing what rich people do.
And they're linking their performance to dollars, to knowing what that means in terms of dollars, which really helps them have something to shoot for.
Yeah. And they all know if they get this result, if they get that result, and so on, then they get this piece. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I will ask an audience, I say, how many people here work on straight commission? And there's a silence, and then about 10 or 15% of people will hesitantly raise their hand. I say, well, what is the truth? What's the true answer to this question? And the true answer is that everybody works on commission. Everybody gets what they call in New York a slice of the vig, is they get a slice of the value that they create. So if you want to earn more money, what do you have to do? You have to create more value. And who do you create value for? You create value for customers. So that's all you think about is how can I create more value? How can I make more customers happy? I'm thinking of writing a book. I enjoy talking to you, but I'm thinking of writing a book called the ER factor, just like the emergency room, the capital ER factor. And I say, what is the key to getting a customer to buy from you? And so I throw out these questions all the time. I say the answer is that you have to make the customer happy. The customer has to believe that they will be happy if they buy your product or service. Now, how do you get the customer to buy from you again? Well, the answer is you have to convince the customer that they will be happier than if they buy from your competitor. They will be happier than they are today. ER. So I said, and so what is that? Well, how do you make your customers happier? Well, you serve them with better products, faster, easier, cheaper, convenienter. In other words, everything's everything is a comparative. So in life, all of our success is based on the comparative, the ER. And I talk to foreign audiences, and this works the same way. In German, they say, gut, besser, am besten. So it's a besser, schneller, guter, leichter, and so on. Better, easier, faster. So the same thing is all you have to think. If you want to be successful in business, you have to say, in what way or ways is my product or service superior to my competitors? What way is it better, faster, cheaper, easier, more convenient to use? Because other than that, nobody will buy it. So every one of us has to focus on the ER. And the ones who focus on the ER the most, like who is the fastest deliverer of online purchases in the history of the world?
Well, obviously Amazon.
Amazon. And that's what Jeff Bezos started off. And when they first started off, if you bought a book from Jeff Bezos, it took 5 to 7 days. But his idea, it'd still be easier for a person to order a book with a much larger selection and have it delivered to their home than to go to the bookstore, as I would have to do. I'd go to the bookstore and I'd say, I'd like this book. Well, we're out right now, but we'll have it back in stock in 7 or 10 days. And can you come and pick it up at that time? And so, okay, you just accept this because there were no alternatives. And you have to go back to the bookstores halfway across town, and they would have it with a little tag on it for you and so on, and you won't pick up the book. Remember those days?
Oh, gosh, yes. At the center place for Barnes & Noble or whatever bookstore, they take the special order, and then you hope it comes in quickly.
Yeah, and you use it because it has to come from one of the book distributors, like who's the big book distributor? Anyway, it has to come from one of those distributors, and they have to put in the order, and then the order has to come back. It takes 5 days to a week. So what Jeff Bezos did is said it's still easier if we can get the book to you in 5 to 7 days. Mm-hmm. And then he focuses his whole company. How can we decrease the amount of time it will take to deliver? They're now down to single day. They're now working, so in centers like San Diego, there's a very large number of most popular products, including groceries, that you can order it in the morning and you have it within 60 minutes.
60 minutes. Wow.
Came up 60 minutes. Now, many other products, you buy a book, you get a book like this, it can be there in a day, for sure. It used to be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Now the most popular books are you order them. I remember I was having dinner with some friends, and a friend of mine said, you should really get this book. It's really good. And I said, great. So I ordered it right there at the table. I went, and the next morning it arrived. The book was there before I even had time to read the book, and it cost me 30% off, and it was delivered 100% paid because I have Prime, so I don't have to pay for delivery. And so what Jeff Bezos increased his net worth last year by $24.5 billion. He's now the third richest man in the history of the world. Why? Because he serves customers better, faster, easier, more convenient, and that's all he thinks about all day long. What is so hard about this?
Focus, concentration. I love it. Let's tackle a couple of the biggies, and then we'll let you get going here. We've talked about success. We're talking about time management. Let's talk about people and family time. Maybe the QER, and QER equals the PS.
Help me out there. What did you mean? The
Quality
cure?
of relationships times the quantity. The quality of
Yes,
relationships times the quality of those relationships equals your
yes,
personal success.
yes. And there's a direct relationship between, I say this, between the number of people you know
Hmm.
and who know you in a positive way and your success. I'm in a real estate deal, and I just got a full update on it yesterday. I own a piece of it. And what happened was I had a client in Budapest. My client in Budapest asked me if I would be able to introduce him to people who could help him to invest in real estate. He's very successful in the United States. And I said, well, I know about 3 people in different parts of the country who are very big in real estate. And he said, well, if you could set up meetings with them, I would come over. So it just turned out that I could put together meetings with 3 of them, one in Miami, one in San Diego, one in New York, all within a 7-day period. And I called them up and I said, would you be interested? They all said, absolutely. Because they're good friends of mine. I mean, good friends of mine. And if I suggest it, they say yes. So we set up meetings with all 3 of them. He entered into an agreement with, his nickname is the Donald Trump of Hungary. I mean, that he's the man financially in Hungary. Anyway, so we are now on the process of closing a $300 million real estate development in Florida. And it's all come together. It's got the approvals, it's got the design, got the engineering, got the land, got everything else. And it all came together because I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who could help someone. And you'll find wherever there's a turning point in your life, there's a person standing there. And usually it can be for good or for bad. So therefore, the more people that you meet and get to know, and what I always say is if you want to network, the key to networking is when you meet a new person, do something for them. Do something nice for them. Send them something, give them something. The very best thing you can possibly do is to send your new acquaintance a customer. Because your new acquaintances should probably be in business. Or send them a patient, or send them a piece of advice, or send them an article, or do something. And you always focus on doing something for them and forget about getting something for yourself. The law of sowing and reaping is the greatest law of history. And it says if you sow, whatever you sow, that also show you reap. So if you do something nice for other people, what will happen is that they will think of you down the road. And they may not think of you for a week, a month, a year, but then one day you get a phone call and somehow it's consistent with the goal that you just wrote down a couple of days ago, and it opens the door that introduces you or gives you a piece of information that can change your life. So the more people you learn, so when you get a chance to go to meetings and so on, meet people, and instead of looking to benefit from them, look for ways to help them. Just to look for it. And every single time you help someone else, it's like planting a seed, and the seed will grow. It will come back to you.
Woohoo! From there, real briefly, quiet time spiritual development, or maybe even, and we're a fairly spiritual and even woo-woo audience here, the importance of the words, I am here.
Yes, well, again, I don't know if you've ever studied Peter Uspensky. It's a whole body of Russian metaphysics. It was started about 1895. Mm-hmm. But the words "I am here," if you do it in the quiet, will cause you to awake. In the Bible, it says, "Awake, those thou who sleepest," and to awake or to become conscious of who you are and where you are. The words "I am here," and then just stop and be aware of who you are, where you are, what's going on around you. You can't do this for more than a few seconds because your mind will shut down. In fact, what Uspensky taught was that if you look at your watch, you just take a look at your watch with your second hand and you say, I am here, you cannot watch your watch for more than a few seconds before your mind drifts. And if you could just keep doing this, and get it up to 30 seconds, your consciousness will raise to a point that will astonish you. He said, if you could keep your mind focused for 60 seconds, you could conquer the world. Nobody can, because they cannot remain conscious of themselves being present in this moment for 60 seconds. Impossible. Nobody's been able to do it. But all spiritual teachings are aimed to help you to be so calm that you can be aware that you are here, that you can become awake to yourself in your life. But that's a whole other subject, and I know you've done a lot of work in that area. So have I.
Oh, fantastic. And clearly then and we don't have to go into it today, but meditation is extremely important for helping us to be able to do this.
Yeah, my favorite definition is just mind calming. It's mind calming. Meditation enables you to calm your mind. Some people are not meditators. I'm not. People say, "Do you teach meditation?" No, I don't. But I do teach contemplation, because I think meditation, your eyes are closed. Contemplation, and your eyes are open. Contemplation and solitude is where you sit perfectly quietly for 30 or more minutes, completely quietly in an environment where there's no distractions, no music, no coffee, no nothing. You just sit totally still for 30 minutes or more. And what that happens is your whole mind calms completely, and then your mind begins to flow. You know all about this. I think contemplation is the greatest spiritual practice of all. I'm not a meditator, but if you're a meditator, people who are meditators, one of those interruptions we had before we started here was from a very successful friend of mine who meditates 2 or 3 times every day. And he's one of the most successful people in his field in the world, and he attributes it to daily meditation.
So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What advice, as we wrap things up, just a few quick wrap-up questions. Jessica, my wife, she's the producer. She always wants me to ask a question about parents and their kids. What advice would you give today for parents to help their kids along this path?
Well, children, just like grass grows naturally, I read a line way back at the beginning of my career from a psychologist, and he said, there is within every person an irresistible tendency to grow, to realize their full potential. In other words, you don't have to plant it; it's there. All you can do is suppress it. So I'm here at home. We have just had Thanksgiving and an early Christmas because we go to Hawaii, and all my family's here. And it's gone from 1 child to 2 child to 3 child to 4 child to 5 grandchildren, and then to boyfriends and girlfriends. And we have always practiced one thing with our children, and it's unconditional love and acceptance. I've never criticized my children, and I never punish them. I know my parents are terrible at this. They were brought up by parents who believe that you have to, beat the crap out of your kids so they'll smarten up and fly right. So I have never criticized my children because I know that criticism destroys young people, and I never punish them. If they make a mistake, I say, well, what happened? And they'll tell me what happened. I say, well, what did you learn? They say, well, I learned this. I say, well, what are you going to do next time? And they say, well, next time I'll do this or not, I won't do that. I say, that's great. I said, I made bigger mistakes than that in my lifetime. And that's the end of it. And another thing my parents did, if I made a mistake when I was 5, they would still be reminding me of it when I was 15. So if my children make a mistake, and all kids make mistakes and get into stuff, it would be discussed once and never brought up again, unless it was humor. So your children never walk around with this burden of guilt and feeling of unworthiness and so on and so forth. They're just happy all the time. You come into my house at any time when my kids or grandchildren are here, they all laugh because they have never, and my daughter, never been criticized. My daughter is 36, has 3 children. The oldest is 9. None of those kids have ever been criticized. My son has 2 little girls, never been criticized. And they laugh all the time. So if I could just give one piece of advice to parents, is just drown your children in unconditional love and approval. Never take it away from them. I've asked my kids once, we were driving along with them and I was listening to something about parenting on a CD, and my wife was with me and they were in the back, and it was something about criticizing children and so on, and children not doubting. Children doubt if they're loved. Nothing destroys a child more, especially a female child, than to doubt that their parents, especially their father, loves them unconditionally. It causes them to be insecure and unsure in all their relationships with men when they grow up. If my father never loved me unconditionally, what about this man? What if he doesn't? And so on. So I asked my kids, I said, let me ask you a question, all 4 of them. And they all stopped talking. I said, do you ever doubt whether or not your mother and I love you 100% all the time? And my kids blew up. They said, absolutely not. How could you say something like that? Couldn't believe it. They were so offended that I would even suggest that we love them less than 100% all the time. And they all know it. They all talk about it. They know it was a fundamental building block of their characters. And as a result of that, they're ambitious, they're hardworking, they get good grades, they're popular, they're friendly, they're entrepreneurial. In other words, you don't have to teach them that. Just give them unconditional love and acceptance, and they will just bloom in the very best way possible.
You gave them the greatest foundation in the world.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So just a couple more quick questions here. What personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
The very best, and because this is Christmas, New Year's, and so on, the very best is always dinner time with my family, with my wife, who is the best woman in the world. And when our kids are here, one, two, more, everything else, we take every opportunity to have dinner together and just sit around the table and just talk and laugh. And so the very best moments of our lives have always been, we go skiing, we go traveling, go to the beach and everything else. But at the end of the day, even we go to Disneyland, at the end of the day, we all come together and sit around a table. And that's the best moments of our lives. And so what we try to do is have as many of those moments as possible.
Thank you so much. From there, where can people go to find your book, to find all the books, and to find out more?
Well, the place to go is always Amazon. This book, Master Your Time, Master Your Life, which is a life-changing book. This will probably become the best-selling book on time management in the world. My book, my current book, Eat That Frog, is already the best-selling book in the world. And so this has already gone into multiple languages, and it's just proliferating. So just go to Amazon, go to any bookstore. It's very easy to buy books today. If I mention this book in a seminar, and people want it, they order it while they're sitting there listening to me.
Fantastic.
And so that's the simplest thing. Just go to Master Your Time, Master Your Life on Amazon, and I think you'll be very happy you did.
And I would say it is a beautiful book and important. That's the word that comes to mind, important.
Potentially life-changing. Potentially life-changing. And I know I've spoken to more than 5 million people all over the world, and I have folded these ideas into my seminars. Every kind of seminar has something on personal mastery, time management, personal productivity, and so on. And this contains all of the best ideas I've taught personally, face-to-face, to more than 5 million people. And just one of these ideas, just one idea in the one section on how rich people think versus poor people, could transform your life completely.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head too, which is no matter how much information we take in, all we need to do is take action on one thing and see it through to completion, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Well, this is the end of the year, and this is what I started doing decades ago. The end of the year is a wonderful time because at this time you can decide that next year is going to be the best year of your life. Next year is going to be the best year of my life. And then if you want to take it one step further, with your workbook here, there's a wonderful exercise that you can do. Is you could say, if this year was the best year of my life until 2017, and it's now December 31st, 2017, what would have happened? What would I have accomplished if this was the best year of my life? And then you write down all the things that you would have accomplished if this was the best year of your life. Your income, your health, your productivity, your growth, your learning, your education, your new relationships, and so on. It's just write down everything that would have happened if this is the best year of your life. And what you're doing is you're programming your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind takes those written instructions as commands and then just goes to work 24 hours a day. And it's absolutely astonishing. And some will be 1 week accomplishments, one will be 1 month, some will be 6 months. But it's absolutely, I've had people who have accomplished their biggest goal on December 30th. They wrote it down in the first week or last week of the year, and the biggest goal of all, they worked, and December 31st, they got a call. And they said, oh, by the way, something remarkable. I just had this experience yesterday, and I just shake my head. That expression, SMH, shaking my head. Every time this happens, I just shake my head. I cannot believe it. And my wife said, you see, that you wrote down that goal. You've been thinking about that goal for months. And that guy just called and said, we're working to bring you that goal. You should have it within 18 to 24 months. It's just, wow. Anyway, but if it's not in writing, it's like cigarette smoke. It has no effect. It just disappears in the air. So say, all right, this is going to be the best year of my life. And then say, all right, it's now December 31st, and this has been the best year of my life, and this is what I have achieved. And write it down as though it's a present tense. I earn this much. I drive this car. I live here. I do this. Always write it in the present tense as though it's already a fact. And you'll be astonished what starts to happen to you, sometimes very quickly. It's just like that woman in my seminar starts to happen while she's sitting there. The goals start to be achieved.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This has been a true honor, a pleasure, a treat. I can't wait to read your next book and to read your book on prosperity and see what's coming next. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. You have a great Christmas, and may next year be the best year of your life.
And you as well. And for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get master your time, master your life, and as well make next year or this year, there's still a few days left, the best year of your life, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!